Hello, it's Dina Mitchell with the Realize Foundation, and I'm here with Nancy Tilton Hand today. And we are going to be talking about the lonely zone. So, Nancy, welcome,
Thank you.
and tell us what in the world is the lonely zone?
The lonely zone. Okay. And I've given this a lot of thought because I've been in and out of it a few times in my life. But the lonely zone is this intense space when you have a goal. And I sort of caveated it. It's that lonely space when you have a goal and it seems like everybody disappears. Like everybody disappears and you're all alone, like being blown through a straw or a tube or something, and you can't get out of it. The goal is ahead. And it does get really lonely in there. And I think that's, for me, to really describe it, it's an intense time of learning. It's a developmental phase, and it's one of those things, and you want to share it with everybody around you, and nobody gets it. If there is anybody around, nobody gets it, and you feel like you're on the moon, but you just keep going. And there are points in there where like with any goal, you might lose sight of what's important, or you might even lose sight of the goal. Like, is this really what I want? And then you kind of stall out there for a minute, but then you keep plugging on. And sometimes you don't know how long it's going to last. But hopefully, with a definitive goal, you kind of have an idea. But the first couple of times it happened for me, I had no idea what was happening. Like, I didn't know it was a lonely zone. I didn't know what I was going through. It was off my radar, and when you don't know, it's a scary place to be. It can be a really scary place to be.
Yeah, that's true. I've never heard it explained that way, but I do know what you're talking about. So, how can people know if they're in a lonely zone?
Well, I'd say first there's either a good idea of what the goal is or the objective, like, and you may not even have a really firmly formed. It made for me, um, you know, a couple of them were academically oriented, but if you have an idea of something you want, even if it's a fuzzy idea, and you just start to kind of dial into it, and the more you dial into it, the more maybe methodical you get about doing the things that will get you there. So it's a goal. You're going after something. I guess the first thing is to kind of recognize what's happening. But um, when it feels like suddenly nobody's interested in what you're doing, but it's turning you on like a light bulb, and they don't understand what you're doing, but for you it seems completely intuitive and normal. I would say that those are some pretty good indications that you are in a lonely zone space, which means that you are really beginning to develop a new skill or a new mindset or a new lifestyle, and it fits you and you're enthusiastic about it, but you turn around and nobody is responding to what's going on with you.
Mm-hmm.
Or they may even like poke at you a little bit, like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
when you are able to just plow forward anyway, there's I think an internal uh, tuning that's happening, and
I
you're
think I think before I ask you the next question, I want to just say that this could be, I feel like the context that you're talking about this is in like kind of a business or work sense or creativity sense and somehow, but I also think it could be on a personal level where somebody maybe they move to a new place and they don't have their friends or family around them, or maybe they're just going through something hard that they're not ready to talk about, and so they feel really lonely because they don't have that conversation or community around them uh, about that certain subject or whatever's happening. And so I just want to bring that up because I think that on the personal side is something we really talk about a lot in these events, and I think it really does correlate either way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I would say when it's with your move analogy, for example. So when you land in a new place, there's so much intense discovery happening. You maybe don't know where your people are. You maybe don't know what you like about this new place. There are some things that you really need to get a footing in before you can begin to to come into your own in that place. And I think that moves, and you've moved around a lot, so you probably know this better than I do, but every move is a chance to rediscover yourself and who you want to be more of in that time, in that space. And every place you move to kind of draws a different aspect of you to the surface, right? So I think discovery, change, self-discovery is a huge, huge, I think, potential lonely zone, because maybe when someone's discovering a new um, lifestyle, a new religious ethic, even they will begin to really tune into it, maybe to the exclusion of the people who've been in their life thus far. And not to say that they won't come into balance with it eventually, but there are some pockets in there where it might feel like you're on the moon.
Yeah, I can agree with all of that. Sorry, I have a frog in my throat. So can you give everyone an example of a time when you were in the lonely zone?
Absolutely. So, you and I have talked before about that head injury I had, and I sort of stopped and started college for a long time. And I got to a point, and I was doing had my first entrepreneurial business, which was stringing and restringing pearls for jewelry stores. And I decided to go back to college right when five of my five close friends, poof, scattered all over the U.S. Um, my siblings were somewhere else, and I ended up moving back home with my mom. So there I was at like 21, alone, and no friends in town really that I hung out with, living with my mom, working and going to school, and I started working out a lot, which I kind of need to do now. But um, and in that with that goal in mind of I wanted to get it done. And so my time was scheduled in like 15-minute increments. I was so focused. I'm surprised I didn't burn out. But at the coffee shop one day I was studying, and I ended up in a conversation with a guy who ended up being a friend, just a friend. But for those 2 years, I had one friend and my mom, and it did feel like I was on the moon. Like, literally everybody was somewhere else. We weren't This was pre-cell phone, so we weren't all talking all the time. There was no WhatsApp for everybody to gather on or anything like that. And it was weird, and I didn't realize what was going on at the time, but I was just so late. I had, like, blinders on, like, "I'm doing this thing, I'm gonna get it done, I'm gonna knock it out, I'm gonna catch up with everybody else," and it was intense. It was really, really intense, and the thing is, when I ended up in law school, and when I say intense, I took an 18-hour summer semester with a commute running a business. It was dumb. But I felt at the end of it, I was so disoriented, and it felt like I'd been shot out of a cannon. I was like, "Okay, like, where am I?" But that time was incredibly lonely. If it hadn't been for Sean and my mom, I really would have felt like I was alone, all alone in the world.
So what advice would you give to somebody who's feeling like that? Whether it's whatever situation we've talked about and they're in that place, what advice would you give them?
Always, what's the best case scenario? What's your ideal outcome? Like, really understand that more than likely, if you're feeling like you're in the lonely zone and things around you are changing so rapidly, what's the goal? Because I would, 90% of the time, there's an objective on the other side that you may be even unaware of, maybe in your core, that you're working toward this ideal outcome, this change for you, where you'll feel more yourself, more comfortable, more loved, more supported. Like, you're trying for something here. What is it? Is it worth it? Those are the first questions. And then really look around and recognize that there are some places where you are being incredibly supported, even if you're not aware of it. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in our own thoughts and like, "Well, what about me?" That you don't look around and see that there are some people who are supporting you in the most wonderful ways. And that it doesn't last forever. If you're in it and you're in it to win it and you're doing the work and making those changes and you have an idea of what the outcome is likely going to be, you're gonna get there. It may be quick, it maybe takes a little while, but I would absolutely pay attention to where you are supported and realize that you're not on the moon, you're not alone, and there are so many lifelines now, like, there's back in the day, like it was a long distance call. Now it is you literally flip on this and here we are speaking face to face and we are way far from each other. We're in
Yeah.
different time zones even. So that
Yeah.
there's more support out there for you than you know, and it's a great time to be alive because of that, I think.
That's true. That's true.
Mm.
Um, the other question that I had maybe should have gone before this one, but what the time in your life that you described earlier, like what would you have changed about that?
Um, I probably I wouldn't have pushed myself quite that hard. It was almost like a panic run, you know? And I would have absolutely, savored that time because my mom is no longer with us, and those years living with her were incredible. And looking back, that's if I could go back and go back into that lonely zone for that reason alone, I would. It
Hmm.
was because I was being supported and I'm not gonna cry, but I was being supported so well.
Hmm.
Like, I thought I was running this race all by myself, but she was holding me up like this the whole time. And Sean was too, and he was a friend for a season, like, I went off to law school, and then it was weird, close friends for about 2.5 years, and then just
Hmm.
drifted apart, and it was fine. Sometimes there are people who step in for a season and a reason, and he was one of them. It was great.
That's very true. I think that kind of what I was saying earlier about the lonely zone in a personal way. Um, I think that our hope course on our website is really kind of speaks to that in some ways, and it's really about is it you that needs help and you're trying to figure out how to get help or support, or is it someone you care about that is in the lonely zone and you're trying to figure out how to support them or help them. And
Mhm.
we do have some videos on our website that talk about that. And we're probably going to talk about that a little more in this event. So I think it's a really good topic, Nancy. And I think um, for those of you who are watching this and don't know, Nancy really teaches people about friendship as well, which is really integral in what we're talking about. Because if you have friends that don't support you or don't understand what you're dealing with, they might be shutting down because they don't know how to help you. But then there might be friends that you could reach out to that maybe have been through something similar, or somebody in our community, or somebody that you meet in a breakout that could really be that friend for a season like you're talking about.
Absolutely. And to that point, it's interesting who steps in and who steps out. And another to that point, if my old school friends, if the OG had been all around me during that time, I wouldn't have gotten it done. I needed that space to become, right? And
Hmm.
that meant even having the people I love most dearly get kinda out of the way for just a second while I get some things done, right?
Hmm.
And that's something to consider too, and it my growth, my development, my changing enhanced those relationships on the other end because they were off doing the same thing in different parts of the country, and we
Hmm.
all kind of left and grew and came back in and have deeper, better, um, more loving relationships because we were able to develop ourselves in that time.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, is there, thinking about our audience and overcoming adversity and, you know, mental health whatever that is, illness, wellness, whatever that looks like for each of you. Do you have anything else you want to share? What is wrong with my voice today? Um, do you have anything else you would like to share with everybody at the event today?
Yeah, actually. Couple things. One is, as always, when somebody pops into your mind, or if there's someone you've had cross your mind a couple of times in the last week, which has been a holiday week here for us, call them, text them, reach out somehow, say hello. Just, and it doesn't have to be for a reason. No reason whatsoever is actually the best reason to reach out, because then you're actually asking how they are doing, what's up in your world. Um, and the other thing is, keep your eye on the prize, whatever that prize is. And that prize could just be a better tomorrow than today, or it could be um, to feel like you're in a space where you're comfortable and you're safe and you're accepted and you feel good and healthy and loved. And that's a good goal for everybody. And your goal doesn't have to be a specific thing. I want to make $1 million. I want to lose 20 pounds. No, how about just, I want to be in a space where I'm happy, healthy, loved, supported, and accepted. And just zero in on that, make that a goal. And what's interesting is when you do tune in and just own it. That's what I want. I want to have that financial freedom, whatever. Um, the aspects of your life will start just like you're going back into that tube. It doesn't have to be a lonely zone. It could just be a change zone. And maybe the people who and the people in the situations and all of that who don't support that outcome will naturally begin to weed away. They'll start to just fade out. And you might be like, where is so and so? Why haven't I talked to them? There's a good reason, because you have a goal and they don't fit with it. But maybe some people you haven't talked to in a while, or you might find yourself in situations that are weirdly supportive to that ideal outcome for you. So just actually being honest with yourself, this is what I want. It's okay for me to want this thing, and then dial it in and see what happens, because the world around you will start to shift to support, and the rest will start to just fall away, and it's nice. Toxic people leave, weird strangers or people from the outer rings of your friend circle come closer. It's really cool, and I've watched it happen 1,000 times.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really important, and I think it's um, like you said, I've moved around a lot in my life, and there are friends that I grew up with that I haven't seen in probably 30 years that I could still have a conversation on Facebook with them, and it's just like we were back in school. It's very easy to reconnect with someone, um, like you said, with all the channels we have available to us today. So even if you're thinking of someone that maybe has been decades since you saw them, it still is
Re-
brings joy to us by saying hi or catching up for a minute or jumping on Zoom or whatever it is. So thanks
It
for sharing.
Yeah, and I mean, there are some people, you'll see something and you'll be reminded. And if I call somebody and say, I saw a cardinal outside my window, or I saw a purple Corvette, and it cracked me up and I thought of you, it's fun, and it's those are those things, and it doesn't matter how much time has passed. Who wouldn't want to have that kind of just a, hey, you crossed my mind. I was on vacation and I thought of you because I saw, this tourists with a fanny pack, and I remember how we made fun of them. But can we still make fun of fanny packs? I am. So reach out, just say, hey, I thought of you. Hope all is well. And you're not saying call me back or anything like that. It's just, hey, thought of you. Hope you're doing well. Everybody loves that. You'll likely hear back, but if you don't, you still made their day, because it doesn't take much to make a day.
That's true.
Right?
I talk a lot about that in my last story in Scars to Stars, is that you never know what the person next to you is dealing with, whether it is your spouse or a stranger.
Mhm.
And you never also know, just saying hello to them or opening the door for them or sending a voice message through Facebook or a text what that means to them and how it changes their day. So,
Oh, I can tell you, I know we're like running out of time, but uh,
okay.
I was fooling around on Spotify the other day and I heard Quando, Quando, Quando. It's such a cheesy, awesome song. And I sent it to a friend of mine who's a chef, and he was like, "Thank you. Today has sucked. This has been the hardest day ever. And I love this song so much, and I can sing every word of it." And he's so funny, and he can. Um, but you don't know. I was just like, ha, 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 I'll send this to Micah. And he needed it.
Yeah. I
It
think
was a
when
great
people
song.
cross
It's fun.
when people cross our mind, it's for a reason. Like,
I agree.
yeah.
100%.
Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me,
Thank
Nancy.
you for having me. It's always a pleasure, Dina. And
Yes.
to everybody out there, remember, no reason is the best reason to reach out. Just say, "Hey, how's things?"
Yeah, absolutely. And do you want to tell people where they could find you?
Absolutely. I am Nancy Hand. I'm at timetobreakbread.com. I do corporate training and development using the time-honored tradition of sourdough bread baking to teach soft skills, dispute resolution, negotiation, and things like that. It's really fun and it's a great way to learn. And also, you end the day with a gorgeous loaf. There you go.
Awesome. Yeah, she makes mm, miraculous bread. Sorry, I was trying to find
Oh,
the right
thank
word.
you.
But
Now you get another loaf, Dina.
yeah. Well, thank you. Hopefully I'm gonna get to come visit you soon. But
Yes,
um,
door's always open. We got plenty of
yeah.
space.
I hope you have a good day, and I hope to see you in the chat at the event, and
Yes,
we
ma'am.
will talk again soon, I'm sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Y'all have a great holiday.